As it looks like the ABK deal is coming down the home stretch, Xbox once again calls out and attacks PlayStation. There's a lot of juicy info here, so let's dive into it. Alright, so we're back with another video. It's your boy, Randall419, the man with the million. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. But it's definitely been a very interesting day. Salt levels are astronomical on social media. Unfortunately, I was already working on this video, so I'm gonna have to save some of the stuff I want to say about Redfall and Hellblade 2 tomorrow. But if you guys just want a little taste, it's very interesting to see the same people who are constantly on social media saying Xbox needs to compete, Xbox needs to do better, Xbox has no games. And then when finally Xbox actually decides to do something and have exclusives for Game Pass and their ecosystem, those same people start to lose their minds. They start to beg and cry. And it was really apparent today because the Redfall previews came out and it sounds like the game's actually going to be really good. And, well, the salt happened because a PlayStation 5 version was planned. But you're going to have to wait till tomorrow to hear about my full thoughts on that, because today we're going to be talking about some of the things that have happened in the past week regarding the ABK deal. Seems like it's going to get approved by the European Commission. Microsoft and the CMA are talking about remedies and those sorts of things. But once again, we have Microsoft calling out and essentially attacking PlayStation over some of the things they've been saying. And it wasn't just Microsoft calling out PlayStation for some of their wrong arguments, at least as they see it, but it was also some third-party developers as well. But let's start with the big picture here when Microsoft's reply to the CMA, where they say that Microsoft stands ready, as it has since day one, to enter into agreement with Sony to ensure that Call of Duty remains on PlayStation. Microsoft has consistently been saying this almost since the deal actually was announced on January 18th. It was like 2 days later where Phil Spencer said, I just got off the phone with Jim Ryan. We want to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. Some people thought it was just a slight maneuver, that Xbox was really going to make it exclusive and just say whatever it is to regulators. But then it eventually showed themselves, be like, no, we actually want to sign contracts. We want Call of Duty everywhere. And Microsoft has been very upfront about that, which is the exact opposite of how they acted regarding Bethesda. From the beginning, they said that Bethesda was going to be case-by-case basis. They were going to honor contracts. Some would be exclusive and some weren't, and that's exactly how this has played out. Yeah, sure, Redfall and Starfield are exclusive, but there's definitely been some multi-platform releases. And even still, PlayStation admitted that Microsoft didn't lie about that. There was no promise that Microsoft made to the European Commission or the CMA regarding exclusivity of Bethesda, but here this is different. Microsoft has pretty much said, we want everybody to play Call of Duty, we're going to put it everywhere. So they go on to say that Microsoft has repeatedly committed to do so both publicly and privately. Unlike Nintendo and Nvidia, however, Sony has steadfastly refused to reach an agreement with Microsoft, calling instead for the merger to be prohibited. Sony has more than doubled the install base and sales of consoles than Microsoft globally. Sony's position must be seen for what it is: a self-serving attempt to protect its dominant market position rather than one founded on genuine concerns regarding its continued access to Call of Duty, which it could have secured months ago. And look, I've talked at length about all this stuff. I don't really blame Jim Ryan or PlayStation for protecting its market position. It's what any good company would do. They see the Xbox deal with Activision Blizzard as something that threatens their business, their bottom line, their revenue, and makes Xbox a bigger competitor in this space. And why would PlayStation want that? So of course they're going to take a self-interested approach. The problem is the arguments that PlayStation has been given have all been kind of ridiculous to a certain extent, and I love making fun of my guy, flying, crying Jim, dance move, saving Private Ryan. The other issue here is that Sony basically has been saying you need to prohibit this deal, need to completely block it, because you need to save consumers, competition, and the industry. But the thing is, it's really hard to say that this deal is going to completely destroy the entire video game industry when it seems like every single major player, as well as some independent developers, are all on the side of this deal happening. It's incredibly difficult to make a coherent and reasonable argument that the video game industry will be destroyed as we know it when the entire video game industry is in Xbox's corner wanting the deal to go through. The CMA even published some letters from developers and publishers that were in support of the deal, and man, one of these developers sure has had it up to here with PlayStation. They go on to say, on PlayStation, we found our sales growing stagnant with each release. This is mainly due to the fact that despite PlayStation having the lion's share of player numbers and console sales, that share is mainly provided to larger titles from huge publishing labels and/or developers and publishers who are willing to spend lots of money on paid marketing within the PlayStation console. This means that on PlayStation, it simply isn't a level playing field for every publisher and developer. It has meant that as the years have gone by, if you put a smaller title on PlayStation devices now, your title will rarely appear organically to PlayStation players. Instead, you are 100% reliant on players knowing about your game already and searching for it on the store. But on Xbox, the opposite has come true over the last several years. There are numerous means of players finding your game on Xbox, including in special sections on the store and through the Xbox Game Pass service. As a result, we found that despite Xbox having much smaller player numbers and console sales than PlayStation, our games sell just as well on Xbox, since more players are finding our games there. We usually find that the revenue we now make from new games is more on Xbox than PlayStation due to this fact, again, despite Xbox being the smaller platform in many ways. It goes on to say that we found that whenever there is a large public buzz around Xbox, there are more Xbox hardware sales, and as a result, we see even better ongoing results on Xbox. With this in mind, I find myself of the opinion that the acquisition of Activision Blizzard can only be a good thing for smaller to mid-sized businesses like ours, as it will no doubt lead to increased sales of Xbox hardware, increased subscriber numbers on the Xbox Game Pass subscription service, and thus larger sales for businesses like ours on Xbox. Coupled with the fact that Xbox has a better ecosystem currently for players to discover new games, I can only see the acquisition being a positive for a lot of businesses like ours. The acquisition will not all of a sudden make Xbox a dominant platform. It's far more likely that it may help to create a more level playing field between Xbox and PlayStation, which at this point in time is sorely needed. PlayStation needs better competition to force the platform to up its game, and this will surely help to do that. Yes, Sony's idea that this acquisition needs to be blocked because the industry would be destroyed, well, I guess that memo didn't reach this developer. Competition is incredibly important, and that's what ABK is going to bring. As the developer said, basically, they get no traction on the PlayStation Store. They do really well on Xbox. And they see this as, hey, more people are going to buy Xbox because of Activision Blizzard. More people are going to subscribe to the Game Pass, which will then lead to people discovering other games. And because of that, it will force PlayStation to innovate, to make it easier for developers' games to be found on their store, and things like that. It's really a good thing, and the only one against it is PlayStation. Then we also have Xbox basically saying to regulators that, hey, 10 years is more than enough time for PlayStation, the dominant console manufacturer, the one that is putting out incredible games like God of War, Spider-Man. 10 years is plenty of time for them to come up with a Call of Duty competitor. So they say, and in a new published document, the company has told the CMA that it believes a decade is long enough for Sony to create alternatives to Call of Duty. Quote, at the remedies hearing, the CMA asked Microsoft if the 10-year duration is sufficient and whether there would be a cliff edge for Sony at the end of this period. And the 10-year period is redacted, Microsoft wrote. Microsoft considers that a period of 10 years is sufficient for Sony as the leading publisher and console platform to develop alternatives to Call of Duty. The 10-year term will extend to the next console generation. Moreover, the practical effect of the remedy will go beyond the 10-year period, since games downloaded in the final year of the remedy can continue to be played for the lifetime of that console and beyond with backwards compatibility. Now, this has led some to speculate that perhaps Microsoft intends to make Call of Duty exclusive after the 10-year deal is over. And while that might be a possibility, the likelihood is that, much like Minecraft, Call of Duty is just going to remain everywhere. It's going to be on the Nintendo platforms, on the PlayStation, as well as through all these different cloud providers like Boosteroid and Nvidia. And if Microsoft has any more deals under their sleeves, they may reveal in the near future. But I think this has more to do with the fact that PlayStation continuously says, we can't live without Call of Duty. And Microsoft saying, we're giving you a deal that is 10 years long, unlike any other deal in the history of video games. 10 years is a long time in the tech sector, and who knows, maybe Call of Duty falls off. Maybe, and I hate to say this, Xbox fans, but maybe Call of Duty falls off in a similar way like Halo has fallen off under 343. There's always that possibility. And 10 years is especially a long time. And in that time, as the dominant market leader, with all those amazing studios under their belt, surely that is enough time for PlayStation to make a Call of Duty competitor. We already know that Sony's planning on dipping their toes into the games as a service arena. And I mean, they do own Bungie, who created Halo. So it's not out of the realm of possibility they could create a Call of Duty competitor. The question is whether or not they want to. And I think that answer is no. And I don't really think Microsoft plans on taking Call of Duty exclusive once the 10-year deal is done, because there's going to be a lot of money that Xbox can extract from PlayStation users to make the Xbox platform even better. And we have one more thing here when it comes to Xbox calling out or attacking PlayStation, however you want to put it. In Sony's response, they talked about the idea that Microsoft could raise the price of Call of Duty, they could degrade Call of Duty. You remember when I made fun of the idea PlayStation was putting out there that Microsoft could put bugs at the final level of Call of Duty? PlayStation was also concerned that they may not use haptics or things that are exclusive to the PlayStation ecosystem. And here Xbox saying is, don't you worry, we got you covered, PlayStation. So it goes on to say that the parties note in particular that there is no basis in the provisional findings for what would essentially amount to a beyond parity obligation requiring Microsoft to develop a PlayStation version of Call of Duty which has more features than the Xbox version. It goes on to explain that the concern being raised by Sony is that a PlayStation version of Call of Duty published by Microsoft could see the Xbox company including fewer features or degrading the graphical quality, but claims that in reality it's in Microsoft's best interest to release the best version of the game it can so more people can play it. Quote, as Microsoft will be shipping Call of Duty on PlayStation in compliance with its Remedy commitments, Microsoft will have every incentive to develop games with optimized support for PS5 features such as haptics and future consoles in order to maximize sales on the platform. So not only do you have Microsoft coming out and saying that Sony is basically self-serving in everything they say regarding this deal, not only do they say, hey, you know what, 10 years is a long time, make your own Call of Duty competitor, and don't worry about the degradation of the game, the potential bugs in the last level, or us not using the haptics. Those are all going to be covered. You're going to be able to play Call of Duty on PlayStation 5 with your little haptics. Not to make mention of the developers and the publishers that are 100% in support and behind the deal right now. We also have that gamers lawsuit that gamers kind of got together to file a class action lawsuit or whatever against Microsoft saying, you can't do this to us, we're on PlayStation, we're gonna sue you. Well, guess what? The judge dismissed the so-called gamers lawsuit. Quote, the complainant does not plausibly allege the merger creates a reasonable probability of anti-competitive effects in any relevant market. Even though that's the exact opposite of what the FTC has been saying, although everybody says they will lose that case if it goes to trial. And we even have a nice quote here from Judge Corley who says, why would Microsoft make Call of Duty exclusive to its platforms, thus resulting in fewer games sold? What is it about the console market or PC games market and Microsoft's position in those markets that makes it plausible that Microsoft would take such steps? It's very interesting to see a judge use logic and facts, very much like the Brazilian Commission, to determine that there's actually no evidence that it would cause any anti-competitive effects. We know that the European Commission is looking to approve the deal with some remedies tied to cloud gaming. Although it doesn't seem like they care too much about Sony's position, they may not get anything. It's all really up to the CMA, and Will they approve it with behavioral remedies? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody really knows. We're going to have to wait. But it is looking really good for Xbox. So anyways, guys, let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Check out the link to the Patreon in the description below. We have Xbox 2+1 coming next week and Xbox 2 on Friday. It's going to be very spicy. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Truly appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one. Later.